Newcastle United made an improved bid on Monday for Benjamin Sesko. They are currently dueling with Manchester United for him. United, this news coming out just before we went on this live on this one, have submitted a €75 million plus 10 in add-ons, which is believed to be slightly lower than what Newcastle have offered. Which is fucking hilarious in and of itself. So my question to you, too, and anyone watching at home who fancies getting involved, why the fuck would you go to Man United over Newcastle United at this point?
Maybe a little bit warmer in Manchester.
Yeah.
The northeast
warmer,
is cold.
But wetter, maybe?
Well,
Definitely wetter, yeah.
But no, there aren't many reasons, are there? Maybe if you buy into the coach, maybe, but even there, I think it's splitting hairs between how I don't.
But Ruben Amorim's a prick.
Is he,
mate? He come out this week and said, like, if you make a mistake and something, I'll show it to everyone, and you're like, all right, fucking
How's
really?
a better person and a better manager for what it's worth.
He's a better person. You've asked me a question.
Okay, no, go on.
No. It's
you
difficult.
seem dead set that he's not a prick, though.
You are scraping the bottom of the barrel. I don't think he is. No, I think he's.
You like the cut of his jib, do you?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I'm glad he's not in charge of Liverpool, more from a tactical perspective, and I think Liverpool made the right decision. But I don't think he's a prick. Okay. I don't think he's a prick, and I think he's I think he's in the midst of just a chaotic situation everywhere else within that football club. But I can see the appeal of if you're a young centre forward and you know what Amorim is kind of trying to do. But the problem is with United that they just haven't solved the fullback situation at all. So he's got this whole system built around the fullbacks and basically has no fullbacks. So if you centre forward, you're going, well, how am I getting any service? You know, there's so much to sort out. Whereas Newcastle, it is kind of a ready-made mould that if you kind of back yourself as a centre forward to go and score goals, and obviously this potentially means that Isak moves on and you can just kind of fill that role. The setup is already very much there. So for me, it is an easy choice.
The Newcastle thing, this is it for me, one of the biggest points and why I find the Newcastle thing so strange. Now, they've got issues in like management. So Paul Mitchell's gone, hasn't he? So they brought him in. They've had like the director of football thing's been weird for them, hasn't he? Because Dan Ashworth, of course, poached by Man United for a short but brief stint there. Paul Mitchell, I remember was having conversations around him. He was being linked with the role at Liverpool. He was seen as one of the great gets in European football at the time. It's not worked for him. One of the directors has gone off on sick leave. He's got cancer or whatever, so they've lost another important head in the sort of business. So it feels like another summer when Newcastle are running a bit rudderless. But they're Newcastle United. They've got a great stadium. They've got brilliant fans. They've got Champions League football. They've got a coach with a clear vision. And there's also, Dan, the sell. Benjamin Sesko, listen, we're going to be selling Alexander Isak, but you know what that means, mate? You're number 9 for Newcastle United. We've got all our team now built and geared around making you the best forward that we can make you in world football. We'll offer you great days like you just saw in the League Cup final. And we've seen with the Isak stuff, if you get to a level and someone else further down the line, we'll even consider moving you on if that move becomes available. It feels like such an easy sell to any forward, let alone Sesko.
And it should be, for all the reasons you just outlined there. They've got endless riches as well to go with it. So the project should be an easy sort of convince as well, really. But and as you rightly say, the plug and play elements of Isak out, in you go. And it's all geared up around feeding a centre forward, isn't it? Because Isak's, filled his boots while he has been there in terms of numbers. So yeah, it should be one which is pretty straightforward, but seemingly not. And Newcastle found it hard to get anyone up there this summer. Let's have it right. This isn't the first instance of them missing out on targets. There's been 4 or 5 examples now where they've really gone for someone and it hasn't worked out and they've moved on elsewhere. James Trafford being one of the more recent ones. I know that was back to City, so maybe that played a part in it, but still, the fact remains they found it really, whether that is because they haven't got
but to the point, like City own Edison, and I know that he'll probably get moved on. Still, but like to that right now, you're behind probably the second best goalie in the league.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so they are really struggling to convince players to come play for their football club. Whether it is, like I say, because of the fact they haven't got the recruitment staff they desire and they'd want, or the figureheads in situ. I know someone from the PIF sort of standpoint have stepped in and tried to sort of oversee and smooth some over these deals and the waters. But yeah, the only thing, and when you sort of initially broached the question earlier on and asked us, it was just Man United's name, isn't it? Ultimately, that's it, and we can sort of talk about tactics and managers and who's a better person to invent the face. But ultimately, I do just think it's the name of Manchester United, and unfortunately, in many ways, the likes of Benjamin Sesko might have grown up watching Man United winning stuff all the time, and that does carry some weight still. I feel when they come call it. I think Brian and Vemo was in a similar boat. Obviously, with Spurs, when Frank goes there, they sort of knocked on his door and his heart set. It seems stupid. It seems absolutely ridiculous that anyone would choose Manchester United over anybody in this day and age, because they are an absolute shit show. But history exists.
You say that though, but it is changing. So I've just had to remind myself how old Benjamin Sesko is. He was 10 years old when.
But Premier League years exists.
It does, but not.
Yeah,
but you don't.
He hasn't grown up in an era.
That landscape has changed, and I think that's a big reason as to why Wirtz came to Liverpool, because he grew up and Klopp's teams were so exciting, and they were in Champions League finals and things like that. So, but there's definitely still that label.
His dad might be a Man United fan, for example. Do you know what I mean? We just don't know the inner workings of all this, and he may have fed it into his son from an early age of how boss Man United. We just don't know. And that, because to the point,
I'll be back there one day.
Exactly, but there is no logical reason as to why anybody would choose Manchester United over anyone. Other than the fact of what they once were.
And it might be just that thing as well of you seem to hold your value at certain football clubs better than others. Maybe that's the case. I mean, the Man United thing, he's not even really a fit for Newcastle, but he's another centre forward who isn't really a proper centre forward, who doesn't score loads of goals, who you could argue does his best work in more of a false nine-y kind of, maybe kind of way, as opposed to being,
I think his goals will come. Sorry, I think he is more likely to become an out-and-out goal scorer than he is an all-round centre forward 9 type. I think he's just so raw. That's why his goals haven't come at a great number yet. But I think if you look at the way he plays and the goals he has scored, if it clicks for him, he will become a goal machine somewhere.
There's so much less scrutiny at Newcastle, a club like Newcastle as well. Regardless of where Man United do well, I mean, particularly when they're doing badly, I guess that if he goes into United and let's say they move Højlund on or whatever, and he becomes the number 9 there, he's the topic on the overlap every week. Yeah. He's like, he's always being talked about by Neville on his podcast. Yep. Whereas, and if he doesn't hit the ground running there, which he won't because it's Man United and it will take time to figure that out. But he might not at Newcastle either. But there he will be afforded the time and patience to have that teething period and it's whether or not you kind of back yourself as a player to go, because I suppose you kind of want that. It's a little bit like Chelsea managers down the years. Everybody backs themselves. I'll be the guy that's going to be different to all the other guys. Yeah. But if ultimately if you're not going to be that guy, the punishment or the result is a lot worse at Man United. That catches up with you a lot more quickly than it does at Newcastle. And they got Champions League football. So
you're dead right. But that's exactly the thing. United have got a lot of things going on. You might not succeed. You might not succeed, but it might not be your fault. Because it might be the structure around. Yeah.
Look how many players are leaving Man United and going on to have fruitful careers. It's like
all of them. Yeah. Basically, every single player who's been hounded out of Man United has basically almost exclusively had a better time since leaving that. Yeah. And maybe that's what he's working for, who knows. But I want a real cheap move to La Liga in 3 years, but loads of money in the meantime. But the Newcastle thing for me, it's going to do 2 years at Newcastle in the Premier League. You'll have one season of Champions League football, definitely. You'll probably get European football, if you help again, if not Champions League football again. And then what? If it's kicked on for you, you're 24. Yeah. You probably... Liverpool, Chelsea, Man United will still be on that. Arsenal might well be looking for someone because Gyökeres wasn't exactly the youngest of purchases along the way. There'll be no shortage of offers for you.
Well, it's worth for Isak. If you look at it that way, the bath has literally taken. I mean, I'm sure, I can't remember exactly who was Isak linked to when he arrived at Newcastle, but he chose to go to Newcastle. He was the main man from day one. And now I suppose, it's not particularly ending nicely or amicably in theory, but he now has everybody queuing up for him, and that won't be the same if he ends up at Man United. You would argue.
And let's be honest, maybe this is another one of those things. It's a side story to the Isak stuff. This is the knock-on impact of Newcastle being difficult over the Isak stuff, because right now if Sesko is on the pathway to being a great footballer, you might look at just Manchester United is. There's an appeal. I think you're right, Dan. There's a luster still to Manchester United that we see beyond because we're Liverpool fans, and it's fucking hilarious to see how bad everything is at that place. But Man United are still a globally sized football team. There's a reputation there. If Newcastle makes sense from a real logical perspective, but if Newcastle develop a reputation for actually not letting players move on easily to where they want to go when good money's on the table, then you might just think, I can't be arsed doing 2 years at a club I don't really want to be at. Then being tied down and being dragged through the mud and being called a prick by fans because I've not committed to the cause. I might as well just go to Manchester United and hedge me bet.
Yeah, I think that's right, isn't it? Because ultimately, again, Newcastle, for all the money and all the smart business and the upward trajectory stuff that they've done in recent years, they're still not a destination football club, like, for anyone. So whoever is looking at that will be looking at that as a stepping stone right now. Whereas I still think, again, to come back to my positive outlook on Manchester United, which I don't particularly like doing, but still, that still probably can just be viewed as a destination for if it goes right, and if they finally manage to get it right. Like, there is opportunity there to win the biggest prizes in world football eventually. There's still some years away from that yet, but if you think I might go to Newcastle, I might have a good time, I might win a little bit of silver along the way, but then I'm stuck, that isn't particularly appealing. But Manchester United, you might go, it might take a couple of years, but eventually, who knows what that looks like. That might well be the choice. The smart money suggests Newcastle all day long, by the way.
Yeah, and given the fact that despite what I said before, there is still this trepidation tactically around Amrit. So if you had to hedge your bets and by Christmas, if one of these two clubs was going to sack their manager by Christmas, it's Man United, right? So then you suddenly a little bit like, I felt a bit sorry for Kelleher going to Brentford. That was different because Frank chose to leave, but suddenly then instantly you've lost the guy who's called the project
you were going to.
So actually is Newcastle a safer bet? Because I mean, what would have to happen between now and Christmas for Eddie Howe to be sacked? They'd have to be probably in the relegation zone or close to it, and even then, look at Tottenham last season, didn't sack him to the end of the season. So I think there is that part as well. If United don't start well, there will be heat on the manager again. It goes back to this scrutiny thing. There'll be heat on the manager by November. Where Newcastle, if they have a similar season to they did last time in the Champions League, where they don't do particularly well, okay, but as long as they get another European finish, it's probably fine.
I think we're putting too much stock in the way Benjamin Sesko and a lot of footballers think about their transfer moves. I think it would be smart and intelligent of him to think in the way that we're doing here, and really sort of weighing up his options, considering what's best. But he's probably just looking at Manchester United and thinking, that's Manchester United. Like that's it's stupid, but this might be it.
But this is where there's two people. It's not the player. Then it's his agents, and it's also whoever's working on the pitch for Newcastle. Ultimately, because it's their job to sell that to him. Man United sells itself. You have to do a lot of work to not sell Manchester United in some regards. And let's be honest, remember, like, Klopp famously turned them down because he just wasn't keen on the whole Disneyland vibe of it all.
Takes a certain type, that.
But like, Sesko's in the Red Bull group.
Yeah.
So like, exactly. It's not like he's gone through like great sentimental value to RB Salzburg and Leipzig. True enough. But so like, there is an element of that to him. Maybe he just thinks, I'll just go to a football mega power and I'll let someone else will figure it all out for me. But it speaks to like Newcastle's pitch team here. If they don't get that over the line, they're fucking something royal there, because it's there for them. How they can't get anything or bigger things. I mean, like Elanga, they spent a lot of money on him, but like, fuck me, if you can't sign Anthony Elanga when you basically don't own a guy who plays in his position. I know Jacob Murphy had a great season last year, of course, but like, that's just such an easy plug and play thing. Yeah. From Forest, fine. And there's so many lines of communication between them two clubs and PSR cheats either way. That was all pretty straightforward. But Newcastle, they're just doing something wrong, and it comes down to it, like Eddie Howe saying things like, about these stuff like goes up to the. Basically, it's like up to the owners almost in certain situations. Yeah, they need to pull the fingers out. That was a clip from the Biased Transfer podcast. To check out the whole show, head to redmenplus.com or click the link in the description.